What a pleasure it is to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Truly our pleasure. You've been a part of this very small handful of people. What a pleasure it is to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Our chief marketing officer, Nick Robinson, you've been a part of this guy's written like exactly what we talk about here. You've got to see it. It codifies everything. Very small handful of people around with. Very lonely and first he made us watch Comp Talk. Our chief marketing officer, Nick Robinson, said, "Dude, this guy's written like exactly what we talk about here. You've got to see it. It codifies everything. We've sort of been bumbling around with." And first he made us watch and so that became our mantra. We need to understand our why. Amazing. And then which forced us all to read the book, and it really did just incredibly formalize. And one of the goals of the show is to bring on people that I just owe a debt of gratitude for us, and so that became our mantra. Like we need to understand our why. It really, really has been which forced us to really and one of the goals it's amazing. Now I hunted your Twitter feed.
Okay, that's nice.
It's amazing.
You're welcome.
And I wanted to start with something that you said. You can learn about us. It's amazing. Now, I hunted your Twitter feed.
Okay.
People are it's amazing.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start with something that you put on there. Seem to understand people. What are some we can learn about our future from our past because regardless of technology or the speed of innovation, people are still people.
Well, I think one of the things that we forget is that we are a legacy machine working in a very different environment than we were designed for. You know?
About just humans.
Our species sort of started showing up about 50,000 years ago. I think one of the things that we forget is that we are a legacy machine working, and it was those evolutionary traits that gave us the opportunity to design for, outlive our competition, but also survive and thrive. Sort of started even as the environment 50,000 years ago. There were other hominid species that existed. We lived in populations that were never bigger than about 150 people for 40,000 traits that gave us the opportunity to. It's only the past 10,000 years, but also survive and thrive, living in populations even as the environment around us were larger than that. In other words, we're not made for this. Which means all the populations that were never bigger than about 150 exactly the same as they used to be of the 50,000 years that we've lived on the planet. It's only the past 10,000 years. If you can understand those things, you really understand what works and what doesn't, that we're larger than that. In other words, we're not made for this. The fact of the matter is we are social being human are exactly the same as they used to be when we were living in populations of about 150. Our very survival depends on our ability to cooperate and trust things. You really understand what works and what doesn't work, regardless of the conditions. The fact of the matter is we are a good person and put them in a bad environment to the environment, and that person will do bad things. Our very survival depends on our ability to cooperate, trust, and maybe they've even performed with bad people that we live. You put them in a good environment, right, and they're capable of turning their lives around. You can take a good person, remarkable, put them in a bad responsible for the group doesn't trust. Maybe they've even performed bad acts. Leaders think that they're put them in a good environment. There's not a leader on the planet turning their lives around that is becoming remarkable members of society. A leader is responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And if you take care of that, take care of the people. You know, we're obsessed with this idea of getting the right people on the bus. You know, as if it's the leader is responsible for the people, changing people responsible for the results. Some sort of if you take care of that, take care of the people, take care of the environment. But we never ask which bus and who's driving the bus. You know, we're obsessed with this idea of I'm more obsessed with what happens to people or something. But we never ask which bus and who's driving the protective environment.
Recursively ask why.
So I'm more obsessed with what happens to people.
That to me is one of those moments
when they come together in protected or unprotected
environments and how we respond to react to their environment. All of a sudden it becomes like you say that you recursively ask why until you get to the point what's that environment. So I get it from a leadership perspective. That to me is one of those moments. Like when you understand that humans just by their nature delineating between their environment, all of a sudden it becomes help people understand how if you don't have rank, not only who's on the bus, but what is the leader, what's that environment. So I get it from a leadership perspective when you have rank.
So as you said, leadership has nothing to do with rank.
Of delineating between a leader
leadership is a responsibility.
Help people understand how if you don't have rank, how you could still be a leader,
but it doesn't change the nature of leadership.
I know
many people who sit at the highest levels of organization. So as you said, leadership has nothing to do. They have authority. Right? And we do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we wouldn't follow them. As you gain rank, you may have more. And yet I know many people who've made a choice, who have no rank, but they've made a choice. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders. We would follow them. They have authority, and that's what we do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we wouldn't follow people around us. And yet I know many people who've made a choice, who have no rank. Leadership is a practice like any other. Person to the left of them, look after the person. It is a skill that can be learned, and we would follow them anyway. And that means it requires practice. You don't just suddenly get a promotion. You're now in a management position and you're a leader. Right? That's not how it works. And if only, leadership is a practice like any other. If only, I know. The reality is we have to learn it, and we have to practice it, and we have to get good at it, which is what the junior rank requires practice. So even if you suddenly get a promotion, you're now in a management position and to make decisions that will impact the entire organization. You do have the ability, right, to make decisions that will impact the life of another human being. The reality is we have to learn how they feel about their own job, get good at it, how well their responsibility. So even if you goes, how easily they can get work done, how supported they feel, how supported they feel if they make a mistake. Do have the ability to make decisions. Do they feel that they can impact the life of another human being? That's all within your control. How they feel about their own job. The same thing as being in a relationship, being a friend. Responsibility. Being a good friend. How easily they can get work done. How supported that our friends can rely on us. How supported they feel if they make a mistake. There's no difference. Do they feel that they can turn to you and ask you for help? That's all within your control. At the end of the day, it's the same thing as being in a relationship. Becoming a leader is about a transition. Being a good friend. Everybody has to go through it if you want to means that our friends can rely on us. As an aside, I will say, leadership is like parenting in the sense that everybody has the capacity to be a. At the end of the day, that doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader is about a transition. And that doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. And everybody has to go through it if you want to become a leader. Leadership is the same. Everyone has the capacity to be a leader. As an aside, I will say, it doesn't mean everybody wants to be parenting, and it doesn't mean everybody should be. Everybody has the capacity. And the reason is it comes with massive. That doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent. To be a leader. But if someone everybody wants to be a leader, that doesn't mean everybody should be a leader. They would like to have. And the reason is it comes with massive responsibility. Then they have to acknowledge that sometimes will or need to go. People just don't want it. It's a lifestyle they choose not to have. When we're very junior, the only thing we have to do is be good at our jobs. But if someone chooses, that's it. That is some people go get advanced degrees. They would like to become how to do their jobs, engineers or then they have to acknowledge that if you're good at your job, or need to go through a transition. And eventually, when we're very junior, the only thing we have to do is now responsible for the people who do the job. Right? Some people go get advanced degrees. Nobody teaches us how to do that and how to do their jobs. We just expect them to be good at leadership. And if you're good at your job, it's as if we put somebody in front of a machine and demand eventually. The reason we get micromanagers, the reason we get bad leaders, how to do that. Is because we just expect them nobody showed them how to do the job of leadership, for one. It's as if we put somebody in front of the machine and demanded results. Of course they're going to tell you to do it their way because they actually do know how to do it. So the reason we get managers, the reason we get micromanagers, the reason we get bad leaders, and the transition we have to make is because that we are no longer responsible. They can't help themselves. Of course they're going to tell you to do it their way because they actually do know how to do it better than you because that's what got them the promotion in the first place. Who's responsible for the results. And the transition we have to make is that we are no longer responsible. I love talking to CEOs and I'm like, what's your priority? They say my priority is my customer. You haven't talked to a customer in 10 years. You know, you have no impact on a customer at all. Talking to CEOs who will then impact your customer. What's your priority? They say my priority is my customer. Or support someone who will then impact your customer. You know, you have no impact. Leaders are responsible for the people at all. Who are responsible for the people. What you can do for the people is screw with someone's life. The customer. Who will then impact your customer. Get that chain right. That is the chain of command. Get that chain right. Who will then impact your customer. And everything goes just fine. Get that chain right. Leaders are responsible for the people. And then the people who are touching the customer, inventing the product, selling the product, for the customer, figuring out ways how to build the company, manage the numbers, that is manage the chain of command, manage the operations. In other words, all the heavy lifting. And everything goes just fine. Get that chain wrong. And those people will spend more time protecting themselves from you, the product, selling the product, figuring out ways how to build the company, manage the numbers, manage the processes, manage the operations. In other words, all the heavy employees to feel the need get that to send a CYA email, and those people will spend more time protecting themselves from you, they're taking time and energy out of their job, away any company, for example, the company's mission, where it is standard practice in that company for employees to feel the need to send a CYA email. Any company where it is standard practice for people to feel the need to keep time and energy out of their things they've done in their career, just in case they need it, you know, is a sign that they're taking time and energy out of their day away from doing their job in order to protect themselves from their own leaders. That's what that is. Practice. Those are signs the need to keep a folder of all the good things they've done in their careers, just in case they need it. People acting out of self-interest. Is a sign that they're taking time and energy out of their day away from doing their job in order to protect themselves from their own leaders. That's what that is. Those are signs of bad leadership. We're now working together to compete. All of these things are people right? In well-led organizations. You tend to find very little politics and very little gossip. Four seasons in Las Vegas. At that level. We're now working together to compete. And the service there is really great. I'll tell you one quick story. It's a true story because of the people who work there. And I had an experience with I was staying a young man by the name of Noah, Four Seasons in Las Vegas, which is a wonderful that they have just there in the lobby. And the service there, and I was buying a cup of coffee, and Noah, the reason it's such a great hotel is because of the people who work there. Engaging. And I had an experience. I think I gave 100% a young man by the name of my $5 coffee. I know as a barista tip. I mean, this guy was great. Coffee shop that they have just there in the lobby. He was a joy, and I asked him, Noah, do you like charming and funny? He said to me, I love my job without skipping. And I think I gave 100% tip. I think what is it that $5 coffee? I think I gave a $5 tip. I mean, this guy was your job so much. I love talking to him. He was a joy, and I asked him throughout the day. Managers will walk past and ask how I'm doing, and I asked, what is it that he said? Not just my manager doing. Any manager that you love your job. He says, I feel supported here. He says, quote, again, without skipping a beat. Past and asked and then he says to me, and if there's anything I also work. He said, not just my manager, Caesar's Palace, any manager. Wow. And he says, I feel supported here. He says, quote, I can be my. I talk about things like trust and cooperation.